The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
First Week Podcast coming to you on April 27th, 2021. How you guys doing? All right. I'm really tired. really tired. My kids wore me out today. It was my day off from work. And actually been off the last couple of days. Not because I wanted to. I'll tell you that in a second. But, you know, I had to deal with the situation, which I'll tell you in a second, too. Had to take the kids to the pool for a couple hours today and wore me out, man. Teaching my 4-year-old how to swim. And he's getting better. He's jumping in the pool with a lot of confidence, a lot of faith in me to catch him every time. But it was cool. But they wore me out, man. Wore me out. Came home, you know, took baths, had dinner, and then we all played Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch until bedtime. So I'm worn out. But I figured, you know what, I got a little bit of energy left. Put the rest of his energy here into doing the podcast. Quick rundown on that, and then and I'm probably gonna obviously upload this, and then maybe just head to bed after that, because I got an early morning tomorrow. Before we get started on the rundown of topics, of course, this podcast you can subscribe to on any podcast catcher such as Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Also, Earnest Speaking Media on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So, you guys may have noticed in recent episodes, some of you guys, I'm sure, probably read the description of the podcast. And whenever each episode, I have like the episode descriptions. They have like what I'm talking about, whatnot, and it's normally just bunched up into like a big, quick, like little 1 or 2 sentences with the topics and all that. Recently, I've decided to modify how I do that. I've started making it where it's a little more clear-cut with timestamps. You know, each topic I get into, it has a timestamp next to it, too. And the reason I did that, because we have a lot of listeners to this podcast who listen for a number of reasons. Some people are a fan of my personal life. Some people are fans of my sports takes. Some people are fans of my wrestling takes and wrestling talk, or the conversations I have with friends and people in media and all that. Some people are fans of this, whatever. So you got a lot of variety of listeners to this podcast, which I truly enjoy and I truly love, and I really appreciate everybody, doing that. And I realized when I started doing it this way, number one, it allowed me to be a little more personal within the linear notes of the episode. Instead of just being kind of act like a third party, I could just kind of be a little more expressive with the linear notes, on the notes of the description, for example. And not only that, if there's topics that if you see the rundown of the episodes beforehand, and let's say you're a listener who likes only my sports takes, but doesn't care about what I gotta say about my family, or care about what I gotta say about wrestling, for example. Not everybody watches wrestling, but that's a lot of wrestling podcast. Then you can just skip that part, and where exactly on the description where the things you're interested in listening to are there. So I'm trying to provide that, and like I said, it allows me also to be a little more expressive within the notes. Instead of sound like a third person, I can actually, it's me doing it, and I can be a little more closer, a little more personal with it. You know what I'm saying? So I've started doing that. Hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys like that option. It looks clean also too. It looks really clean. I typically didn't like doing it before, because I didn't like to stuff it with so much stuff. I know a lot of podcasts I listen to that they do the thing I used to do, but they'll like two or three paragraphs they're writing in there, and it gets lost. Well, at least you can see cleanly each topic I'm talking about, and especially on the solo podcast. It's just like this show, for example, this solo episodes, it's me talking. You're definitely going to see that. On the guest episodes, maybe not so much, because you don't need to, because the conversation is kind of just right itself, and it's not really much topics necessarily, or topic centric. We just kind of go open conversations and all that. So But that's the reason why you've seen a little bit of changes, if you noticed it. Why you've seen the changes on the recent episode descriptions on the podcast. Anyway. All right, so I wanted to get in here. I wanted to do a pod last night. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. I had a weekend from, I want to say hell, but it was definitely a chaotic weekend. It was chaotic. It was challenging. One of those weekends where you wish you just, okay, can we just get to the end of this thing, please? You know, and I'm not complaining because, again, things happen and you got to go through it. I will say my attitude has been pretty positive about it, both myself and my wife. Saturday was, obviously was a, kind of a tough day, whatever. I said in the last episode we did here that, we had to take our dog to the vet on Saturday, to get his eye checked because, we come to find out it's called Horner syndrome. It looked like he was going blind in one eye, which is thankfully, the vet got back to us this weekend and said he's not going blind. It's obviously we need to treat it, which we are doing with eye drops, whatnot. But we also did a blood check on the dog as a result, and he's the work came back, and everything is for the most part positive. Everything is good. Obviously, he's getting older, so we expect to see more problems as he gets older. But for the time being, he is doing well, according to the vet. So that's been good. Now, Sunday, my wife, she worked a couple hours, but Sunday we went up to Fort Pierce for the day because we went up to see my wife's grandmother's grave, her headstone. She passed away last month, March 2020, actually. So, and obviously my wife's Jewish. Her family is Jewish as well too. So the tradition is you normally reveal the headstone a year after the passing. So we went to the gravesite to reveal the headstone for the first time, which is gorgeous. So it was we did that like a little ceremony with a rabbi there and all that. Like a 20-30 minute ceremony up there. And then we came back to Palm Beach County and we went for lunch with the family. It was about maybe 20 of us, I think. 20, 15 of us maybe that were there. My wife's aunt and her daughter. My mother-in-law came with us. My brother-in-law came with us, and then I think a couple of my wife's grandmother's friends and family who we were close to were there as well too. We had a real nice time, very very nice time with them. We went to a nice little restaurant on the water. It was really nice. And then we came home, relaxed, and then hell broke loose on Monday. So Monday morning, I'm getting ready to go to work. I go to work. I'm getting ready to go to work actually, but I need to get gas in the car. I go to the closest 7-Eleven next to my house, put gas in the car, and fill the tank. And then all of a sudden, I go to the car to start the car, and the car won't start. In fact, not only did the car didn't start, the electric, nothing was on it. I was getting nothing. Nothing turned over. Nothing whatsoever. There was no light. There was no. So, and I knew it wasn't the battery because the battery is pretty new. I got the new battery for the car like less than 2 months ago. Okay. So my first assumption was maybe it's the starter, maybe it's the alternator. I don't know. So I call my wife. She was home. I call my wife, tell her, hey, I'm stuck at this gas station. I need you to come and maybe get a jump and see if that's the issue. Which she came, of course, it turned out was not the issue. So we had to get the car to the mechanic. First, I had to move the car out of the gas where, when you get gas, I had to move the car out of the way, first off, into the parking lot area. And then we had to call the tow truck to pick up the car for us to get it to the mechanic. So they said to be there in 2 hours. Unfortunately, they're behind schedule, whatever it may be. They didn't get to us. Now, granted, this is also at 9 o'clock in the morning. 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. I went to the gas station at 8:30. My wife gets there about 9. And they didn't get to us until 1:30 in the afternoon. The entire morning with my wife, my 4-year-old son, who was pretty fussy at this point, had to deal with that for a good 4 hours. So the tow truck finally came. Thankfully, our insurance covered roadside. So we won't have to pay for extra for a tow truck. And they took it to the mechanic next to our house. And then we find about an hour or two later, they call us, tell us that basically they don't know what's wrong with the car. Basically, they were saying that the car was getting power, the alternator was fine, batteries obviously, as I said, it's correct, it's fine, the starter is fine, all that. But for some reason, it's not reading, so they assume it's an issue with the computer. They checked again, called back an hour later, said that they don't know what to do. They referred us to a place in West Palm, the city of West Palm, probably not far from my house, about 20 minutes north of my house, to take the car in. Now, again, the car is not working, so we got to get it towed. So we called our insurance company again. Thankfully, they covered it again. So they came this morning to take the car from the mechanic to the electrical place. Within the first hour of it arriving, because they called us at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call saying that they already figured out the problem. The problem is basically that the wiring was corroded. The wiring on the computer is corroded. And a situation, it was good because when we first heard that it might have been an issue with the computer, we assumed that, well, a computer issue, that means you got to pay about $1,000 or more to fix this issue. But because it was only a wiring issue and basically the wires were corroded and basically worn out, it only cost us $350. And basically they had the problem solved within an hour. So I got the car, picked the car again this afternoon, got it, everything is fine. So, and I'm proud of us because normally my wife and I, these things we get stressed about, and it's like, oh my God, because we are very much a routine family. We don't really deviate from what we do. So when things happen that's out of control, we tend to panic, especially on my end. But we decided yesterday, say, listen, there's no point in panicking. The problem is what it is. We need to fix the problem and go forward with it. And we did that. And, I have this belief, honestly, overall, that, a positive attitude goes a long way. It is what it is. A positive attitude does go a long way. The result will be the result, So, and obviously, everything worked out well for us, which is great. I'm truly thankful for that, but yeah, that's how our last couple of days went here. And, stressful, yes, but, you take on what you take on, and one of those things, and, I don't know, but I'm just stressed out and tired. These kids wore me out today. But yeah, in closing this here, I wrote this on social media today too, as a result, basically saying, and this is true in every form, your mindset influences so much of the end result. You control what you can control, and the rest will be figured out accordingly. We can be mad all we want. We can be here pissed off and, frustrated, but the problem is still there. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to approach the situation? You're going to clear your mind, not clear your mind, and that's kind of how my wife and I decided to approach the situation. And it worked out in the end. We paid less money than we thought we was going to pay for the situation. Things worked out. We were able to get family to help us out. My brother-in-law was able to pick up my son from school, be able to take me to the place to pick up the car and all that. So it's, and I was telling the wife too, before we go to the next topic, I was telling my wife also too, we, having two cars is a luxury for us. We don't necessarily need two cars. Now, two cars helps our situation, for us to get the flexibility to go out places and randomly, to go visit, my mom, or, obviously going to work and all that. But we don't need two cars. We can survive off one car. I was saying to her, I remember when we had our first kid, we made a decision actually to only go one car. And because we didn't go anywhere, when it was just us and the kid, and we didn't really go anywhere. So there's no necessarily no need to have a second vehicle until we needed it. There's also fun times, actually. It's simpler times for us and the family, But I'm just grateful we got a situation taken care of and with little damage. So, but anyway. Okay, so here's a topic that I want to talk about. I'm pretty excited about talking about it, actually, because yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of people maybe weren't following this court case outside the documentary that came out 2 years ago, the Leaving Neverland documentary that accuses Michael Jackson of molesting two men in their child as kids, Wade Robson and James Safechuck. The case, now James Safechuck's, both guys had separate suits against the Michael Jackson estate. Now Safechuck's suit was dismissed late last year, which I mentioned on the show. And now Wade Robson's lawsuit has been dismissed now officially as of yesterday. Obviously, he says he's going to appeal it, whatever. This is now his third time losing a court case with a situation. Dating back to 2014, I think 2015, then 2017, and now this one. And, you know, everybody knows I'm a Michael Jackson fan. Everybody knows that. That's well known. But I'm also have been someone who has followed not just these two cases, but also the cases with Jordan Chandler in 1993 and, of course, Gavin Arvizo in 2005. I'm very familiar with all the cases because I followed those cases tooth and nail as a teenager and as an adult. And a lot of reasons why I know so much because I want to make sure, because as a big a fan as I am, I want to make sure that I'm not supporting a pedophile. And I don't believe he is a pedophile. In fact, you look at the evidence and do the research and you look through the court papers and whatnot, and you get past the sensationalism of everything. You know, you realize that this is nothing more than extortion. You know, and the funny thing is, you look at the Leaving Neverland documentary, which I did see, and I watched it twice because I wanted to make sure I know what I was talking about when I had to either defend or let loose on Michael Jackson. But you look at the documentary, nothing makes sense. If you follow the court papers and the court documents in the last 6 years leading up to the documentary, and you put it up against the documentary itself, it doesn't add up because nothing makes sense. Because first off, they say one thing in court papers, and then they say another thing in the documentary, and they got dates wrong and all that, and then counter dates, and then we're finding out that, you know, certain things that happen. For example, like one of the accusers, I'll say it again, one of the accusers was said that he was abused at a train station in Neverland in 1990, whatever it may be, and yet, well, first off, he alleges that he was abused from 88 to 92. Yet the train station he says that he was abused at was never even created Neverland until 2 years later. So there's a lot of things in that doesn't make any sense when you look at the details, you know. Because at the end of the day, you can be grossed out and you can be shock value and emotions and all that, but at the end of the day, I care about one thing. At the end of the day, regardless of who the fuck it is, it could be Michael Jackson, it could be anybody, somebody in my family. I care about one thing and one thing only: the facts, the facts, the facts, and the facts that we know of this case is that nothing holds up, and it's quite incredible that even in this era, Me Too would be much easier to actually indict or put his estate responsible for this thing. Given the era we're in now, given the cancel culture we're in now, it'd be so much easier to do this now, especially with him being dead, and yet the court still doesn't side with the accusers. It means something, and this is a new judge. It's not the same judge as the first two cases. So clearly, the judge sees something here that does not make any sense. Of course, they say they did appeal, whatever, maybe. I don't care. But, of course, they're going to appeal. I expect them to. I mean, for crying out loud, things have been so bad for these two guys, they owe the estate money for court fees for the first two lawsuits. So, I mean, and again, Wade Robson, he's a piece of work, I'll tell you, because if you know his history, you realize this is not a good dude. This is a guy who's been blacklisted from Hollywood. He was a famed choreographer at one point. He used to be choreographer for Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, and he's the reason why Justin Timberlake and Britney broke up and all these things. And he also used to date Michael Jackson's niece, Brandy, and he cheated on her with Britney and all that. He at one point used to date Prince's ex-wife when they were still together, allegedly together. It's a lot of shady things. And one of the things I noticed too also, when this documentary came out, with all the media that was heavily on the side of the accusers or the quote-unquote victims, you didn't hear a lot of people who are personally close to Wade Robson defending him. People, people come out to defend his character. For that matter, you didn't hear a lot of that. I didn't see any of that, to be honest with you. And you would think that the media would put a light on that, but they didn't do that. And again, I'm someone that's followed this stuff pretty tooth and nail. You follow me on Twitter, you'll see I'm pretty active with this case, pretty active when it comes to this topic. These two guys are lying, and if you do the deep dives, and again. And not just this case, but the entire Michael Jackson saga in dealing with the pedophilia, the alleged pedophilia. I've had two friends on this podcast, personal friends of mine, both who have had interactions with both accusers from 1993. Remember, my friend Josephine Zoni came on this podcast back in September. She went to college with Jordan Chandler at NYU. She is featured on the documentary on Amazon called Square One. Discussing the 93 case in detail. She was on this podcast, and again, she's like the main person featured on the documentary. Then you got, of course, my other friend Jeanie Winings, who's been on this podcast numerous times, actually, who was actually also on the witness list for the 2005 trial for Gavin Arvizo. When Michael Jackson was on trial. Was on the witness list because she had contact. And the reason I know this because and these things, by the way, I knew for years because Josephine told me back in 2001, 2002 that she was going to school with Jordan Chandler. Jen, I knew she was in contact with the accuser because she told me in the moment that when it happened. She called me out of Neverland one time and told me that she was there and she met Gavin Arvizo, who at the time we knew he wasn't the accuser, but at the time he was actually the guy known as the kid feature on the Martin Bashir documentary. So I know these things. I'm not lying about that. So again, I don't. in the words of Dave Chappelle from 2 years ago, I don't believe these motherfuckers, and I still don't. That simple. And they didn't get a deserve. And I hope this state hits back hard at them going forward. So anyway, well, yeah. So the Oscars was actually 2 days ago. Another year, another Oscars fail for me. I really have been attempting to try to cover this thing for on this podcast, do the Oscars preview show every year. But every year I fail because number one, I forget what the Oscars are, and then the access to the movies isn't that easy. Like a lot of these movies are not available to watch until literally a month or two before the Oscars actually happen, and I don't have time to go to the movies and get it. So I think after this year, I'm not going to bother trying to cover the Oscars in the podcast because what's the point? What's really the point? And not only that, honestly, I think it comes to terms with the fact that I'm really I'm more of a TV guy anyway. I grew up as a movie guy. I grew up as the big movie buff and all that. And then probably around the last 10, 15 years, that's flipped on its head. I've been more of a TV guy. Like not that I actually watched the Golden Globes, but you're likely to see me watch the Golden Globes before I watch the Oscars. And not only that, the Oscars, it's kind of annoying anyway. All the woke shit going on. I'm not against some woke culture to some degree. Obviously, some the individual, movements, all that. It doesn't make sense. But it's gotten too fucking political, and everybody's all fake. Hollywood's fake anyway. So why would I want to watch it anyway? Hollywood's fake as shit. So, but yeah, another Oscars. I'm gonna give up. I'm not gonna bother trying to cover the Oscars anymore. What's the point? Okay. Anyway, a couple of things here before I let you go. Some wrestling talk here. AEW has had a nice couple weeks in the ratings. AEW Dynamite. As you know, NXT and AEW used to be on the same night on Wednesday nights until a few weeks ago. After WrestleMania, NXT moved to Tuesday nights, and they saw a little bit of a rating spike. But AEW even more so has gotten a nice rating spike last 2 weeks. In fact, the first show coming out that week was their second biggest rating number since the debut back in 2019, to October 2019. Where I think they got like 1.3 billion, 1.2 million viewers on Wednesday. And then last week, a little lower, but it still got over a million viewers. So the thing that we're talking about now is this. With AEW now being unopposed on Wednesdays, is it possible for them to sustain having a million viewers? Like, obviously, they got the big pop. You know, it did help that Mike Tyson was on the show, too, as well. But is this a blip in the road? Is the show good enough to sustain itself, these numbers going forward? That's been a big topic of people in the wrestling community, that whether or not they can do this. I'm skeptical because, again, their show, in my opinion, goes through waves. Like they had a nice little run after Revolution, after the disaster Revolution, should I say, back in February or March rather. They had a couple of great shows. Arguably, I would say arguably one of their best shows they've ever had. So you got to wonder, could they sustain this? I mean, with them being unopposed now, it's possible that 900,000 to a million might be the sweet spot. Prior to NXT moving, they were getting anywhere between 600,000 and 900,000, depending on the week. You get a spike depending on how good the show is and what cameos they're having, whether it was Shaq or Mike Tyson, anything of that ilk. You know, I'm skeptical. I think they can keep it. I think, to be totally honest, I think the sweet spot for AEW going forward might be 900,000. Which, again, not still that bad. It's close to a million. I think they'll hover that million mark, but I don't think they'll get over close to. I don't think they'll get what they got the first week after NXT moved, like the 1.2 million, 1.3 million. I don't think that'll happen because, again, those are those rating spikes. You want to sustain it. The real numbers is in the sustainability. And by the way, for the record, and I'll say this again, I think wrestling ratings, honestly, today are overrated because these ratings, I don't believe accounts for on demand, does not account for YouTube, doesn't account for, social media. First off, I watch AEW Dynamite. I watch all wrestling programming that AEW and WWE puts out. None of them I watch live. I don't watch any of the shows live. I watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW on demand. I watch Raw, SmackDown. I watch Raw and SmackDown and NXT on Hulu, which is edited down from 3 hours. Like, for example, the Raw on AEW. The Raw show every Monday, that's on the next day after Raw, on demand, should I say, is edited down from the 3-hour soiree to an hour and a half. The NXT show on there is edited down from the 2-hour show to 1 hour. And then SmackDown is left as is, which is fine. SmackDown's the best show going on wrestling television anyway, to be honest with you. By the way, check out the Roman Reigns last promo he did last week with Dan O'Brien. Phenomenal, just for the record. AEW, like I said, I don't watch it live. I watch it the next day because I don't want the commercials and stuff, although they have picture-in-picture. But I have a hard time believing they'll sustain itself because AEW goes through all these waves and stuff. But I hope it does well. I'm rooting for Tony Khan and company. I definitely am. So we'll see what happens there. But I still have doubts that they'll maintain that. So, quick review here. A&E, staying with some wrestling talk here. A&E has started releasing, or going to release also 8 biographies, wrestling biographies, on 8 different wrestlers. I saw the first one last week on Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is really good. And I thought initially that when I watched it, maybe it was going to be like another biography of things we already know about him, but it went into detail some things that I didn't know, actually. And I know he had kids, 2 daughters, whatever, but I didn't realize that his relationship with his daughters was fractured because of his work on the road. I also didn't realize that how bad his depression was when he left the business after 2003. Like, all the big things about, his rise, his neck injuries, all that. And those things we've been talking about for years, and you can, obviously debate it, but there's a lot, the things I was really interested in hearing was, how he grew up. He played football, he was a quiet kid, very clean, whatnot. And then, of course, post-wrestling, how he handled, his life after that, because it was hard, because he was pretty, focused individual when it came to the wrestling world, but yeah, it was a great documentary on A&E. I enjoyed it. You learned a lot about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Williams. Definitely worth watching. Roddy Piper is the second episode was on Roddy Piper. I have not watched it yet. That came out on Sunday. I'm gonna watch that maybe tonight if I stay awake. If not, tomorrow I'll probably review it on this podcast on the next episode I do. But yeah, definitely check it out. I know they're gonna do one on Macho Man Randy Savage this coming Sunday. They got a couple Ultimate Warrior. They got a couple other ones. Shawn Michaels. That's one I'm looking forward to watching, especially Shawn Michaels. But yeah, it was a really really good documentary. So, let's talk a little bit NBA. Mostly with let's talk lists. Top tier lists, top fives, and all that. So Jeanie Buss is the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, the current owner. This past weekend, she actually revealed her list, which I thought initially was top 5 players all time, but ended up being the top 5 most important Lakers in franchise history. Which got some, buzz, if you want to call that. So her top 5 Lakers in history, according to Jeanie Buss, was as follows. Not in order. She has Kobe Bryant, of course, on there. Magic Johnson. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. LeBron James. And Phil Jackson. Now, the first 3, no question. No question. Magic, Kareem, Kobe. Those are not only just the 3 most important, those are the 3 best Lakers in the history of that franchise. End of discussion. We can argue about the order. I'm still a Magic guy. I put Magic over Kobe, and then I put Kobe over Kareem, just based on not so much just the encore, but also the impact of the player, But LeBron. Do I like her answer, LeBron? I don't hate it because this is his 3rd year, and what I will give him credit for is LeBron James turned this franchise around faster than anyone could imagine. Okay, first year, he's there. He misses the playoffs, albeit he missed most of that year to the injury. When he was healthy, they were the 4 seed, and no one could tell no one ever know how good they would have been if he stayed healthy. But when he got hurt December of 2018, they were the 4 seed in the West and started to catch on. And then once he got hurt, the whole wheels fell off. So let's be clear there. And then last year, of course, as you know, they won the NBA championship in the bubble. So he should get credit there. So I'm not saying I disagree with her, but this is only a 2-year sample. But when you look at what he did in this first 2 years, no playoffs, NBA championship in 2 years. First title for the Lakers in over 10 years. That's a big deal. That's a pretty big deal. So you can't necessarily hate on that. You can't necessarily knock off of that. Phil Jackson is important. And if you talk about important Lakers, he has to be in the conversation. He won five rings there. The Lakers were, again, not necessarily dumpster fire, but they gained direction once he got there in 99. Went three-peated immediately. Then won 2 in a row with Kobe and his cast in the late 2000s. So you can't hate on Phil Jackson. I would say the only people that's not on this list that should get a little more look-see, in my opinion, is Pat Riley, for starters. What's Pat Riley in this list? I'm not saying he has to be in the list. I'm just saying, was he considered? I'm just curious. What about, James Worthy was pretty important to that team. I would say Elgin Baylor, Jerry West. There's a lot of other guys you can consider. Where's Shaq? Just curious, where's Shaq? Because Shaq, 3 rings. He was the best player on that team for most of those 3 titles between 2000 and 2002. Just saying. So it's I'm sure Jeanie obviously dated Phil Jackson. They were actually engaged at one point. LeBron is also Jeanie's because she's the current owner. This is her guy. Makes sense. I guess she has a little more of a bias towards that. But I'm surprised that Pat Riley didn't get any look-sees, and I'm surprised that Shaquille O'Neal didn't get any look-sees either. That's a little shocking. Just saying. Okay, finally, before we go, more talk on lists, NBA and lists. The great Dr. J, Julius Erving, recently on Twitter put out his top 5 first team and second team all-time NBA lists. which caused a lot of controversy. A lot of folks are kind of up in arms by that one. And I'm going to read this out right now in just a second, if I can find a list. So again, Dr. J broke this down to two teams, like first team All-NBA, but instead of like current players, he did it more in terms of all-time grades. So his first team, which I believe is by position here, looks like it. His first team, he has Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain. Now it's kind of funny because like it kind of seems like he's going based on the era he played in, so he's favoring his era, if you will. His second team here, he has Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Karl Malone, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay. Noticeably missing on this list, of course. Two things here that are noticeable here. Number one, Michael Jordan's on the team number two, not number one. And number two, obviously the big one, especially for today's NBA fans, is that LeBron James is nowhere to be found on either of these lists. Now, I'm out here trying to accuse Dr. J of playing favorites because of the eras he played in, because all these guys he's mentioned, he's played against, at least, even Karl Malone, he's played against at one point or another before retiring. These guys on the first team too, the Wilts, Oscars, Jerry's, Elgins, and all that, Russells. It's just fascinating to, we are a product of what we played with and who we're exposed to, whatnot. I know these older players who I definitely have respect for. There's no question I have respect for these old players, especially Dr. J. Dr. J is one of the all-time greats, top 20, 25 player all time. But obviously he's leaning heavy on the eras that he was exposed to as a player. I'm really curious at what the context was on this conversation. I'm looking for whether this is built out of conversation or whatnot, because there's no way you don't have LeBron on your list. I mean, does he have Kobe Bryant on his list, for crying out loud? There's no one on this list that played past 1999, 2000. There's no Durant. I'm not saying he has to be there, but there's no Durant, no LeBron, no Dirks, no Dwayne Wade. There's nothing. There's no player past 1999. And yes, I know Michael Jordan played to 2003, but still, I'm talking about Jordan with the Bulls. Okay, there's no player on this list past 1999 or 2000. So, what exactly was the criteria that he was using to make this list is what boggles my mind. I'm just curious, But hey, it's his list. Like, why don't get mad about it? People get LeBron, all the LeBron fans. Oh, the fucking Dr. J sucked anyway. Like, stop. Don't get mad because your guy wasn't on the list, so you want to knock the other guy because your guy wasn't getting respect. Like, stop, because you're doing it wrong. Okay, you're doing it fucking wrong. I don't agree with this list either, too. But come on. So anyway, that'll do it for this podcast today. Of course, April 27th, 2021. I'm on Twitter, of course, at EJChristian7. Earnestly Media at all social media outlets, of course. Earnestly.net is the website. And we will come back soon with another podcast later in the week. So talk to you guys later. God bless and see ya.